Welcome to the 21st election in American history. It was held on Tuesday, November 3rd, 1868, and the Reconstruction era had just begun. The Civil War had culminated not long ago after the surrender of Robert E. Lee at the Appomattox Courthouse, and at last the war was over. But tragically for President Abraham Lincoln, Confederate sympathizer John Wilkes Booth had a plan, and the assassination of Abraham Lincoln occurred at Ford's Theater. While Lincoln's bodyguard was distracted, Booth took his opportunity and shot the president at the back of the head and then fled the scene. The wound would sadly prove to be fatal, and less than 10 hours after the assassination attempt, President Lincoln passed away at peace, with his colleagues, friends, and family around him, and thus the greatest and most important president since Washington died for his country. Meanwhile, John Wilkes Booth was the most infamous and searched man in the country, and after the army found him hiding, Booth would be dealt a bullet to the exact same spot that had killed President Lincoln, and John Wilkes Booth would die shortly. And after all of this, Andrew Johnson became the 17th president in American history. Many in Washington were in disbelief of what had happened, especially the radical Republicans who now had to work with a Southern Democrat to pass legislations. They were progressives and were happy to see African Americans have more rights, like being able to run for office and having the right to vote. Andrew Johnson hated this idea with all his heart, which is why he was soft on the South and not caring at all about Reconstruction. Congress still was able to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1866, giving almost everyone citizenship, and was passed by overriding Johnson's veto. There was also the Reconstruction Act of 1867, which laid out the qualifications required for a state to get back in the Union. Another key part of this era were the amendments, like the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. Finally, the 14th Amendment occurred and guaranteed citizens equal protection under the law. And all this tension between Johnson and the radical Republicans would lead to the first impeachment of a president in American history. After violating an act, Johnson would come under scrutiny, with new 6th Chief Justice Simon P. Chase presiding over the trial, since Roger B. Taney passed away in late 1864 in one of the most controversial and consequential moments in American history. Johnson was acquitted by one vote. Another major event was the purchase of Alaska by Secretary of State William Seward. This would be a major purchase, adding more than 500,000 square miles of new land for only $7.2 million. While for the election, the Democrats' nominees for president were George Pendleton, 1864 vice president nominee, unpopular incumbent president Andrew Johnson, Indiana Senator Thomas A. Hendricks, and Civil War General Winfield Hancock, while Francis Blair, a representative from Missouri, was the only nominee for vice president. In a weird twist of fate, Blair was the running mate to popular convention chairman Horatio Seymour. Seymour shouted that he did not want to run for president over and over again, but he became the nominee by the convention. Meanwhile, the Republicans unanimously nominated famous General Ulysses S. Grant for president, while for vice president there was House Speaker Schuyler Colfax, with Ohio Senator Benjamin Wade fighting for the nomination, and in the end Colfax became the running mate of General Grant. The campaign would be ugly, with extreme amounts of racism being used by Seymour and especially by Blair to scare people, while Republicans called Seymour's family insane due to his father committing suicide. And Grant and the Republican Party ran on the platform of "Let us have peace." And the winner was Ulysses S. Grant won, becoming the 18th president in American history. Grant won with 214 electoral votes, with 52.66% of the vote, and Colfax became the 17th vice president in American history. Seymour got 80 electoral votes, but with 47.34% of the vote. This election was closer than expected, while being the first one of the Reconstruction era. and African Americans were the key voting bloc and factor in this election. This being such a close race would scare many Republicans, and especially radical Republicans. In the Senate, the Republicans won, winning 57 out of the 68 seats, 23 over the threshold. For the House, the Republicans also won, winning 149 seats, 27 over the threshold. James G. Blaine, a Northern Republican from Maine, became the 27th Speaker of the House. Grant took his oath of office on Thursday, March 4th, 1869, in the Capitol, with Grant laying down the foundation of his presidency, while Johnson did not bother to attend the inauguration. A new era in American politics began, and thus the 21st election in American history came to an end. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next video.